Hey guys, MentalReach here. Whenever we think of people doing the impossible, we usually think of people like Superman. But because of his special circumstances, I think it might be better if I relate to someone like Batman. Because not that many people could naturally lift cars up or run super fast thanks to the sun. But when you actually take a look into Batman's life, you'll see that he's just a regular guy who's done nothing more but push himself beyond his limits. And although what he does can look easy, most people would die the first night they try living his life. And like Batman, there's people who can play an instrument while even thinking about what note they should play next. There's writers who could write an entire story while even thinking too much about it as they write. So how can these people do these things while thinking too much about it? That's because for anyone who becomes a master of what they do, they first have to enter a pure state of concentration known as flow. And flow is when you're solely concentrated on what you're doing and nothing else. I don't care whether you're a musician, someone who enjoys building anything, or someone who likes sports. Anyone who wants to become a creative genius at what they do first has to understand how to enter a state of flow. And in The Rise of Superman, even though we're using Batman, by Steven Kotler, he mentions that becoming the superhero of your own life can let you do things that you may have considered impossible. Now the first point we're going to talk about from this book is your psychological triggers. Now notice how Batman first begins his training. He isn't starting his training in a difficult status because his body won't be used to that type of training yet. It'd be like you trying to lift 300 pounds on your first day at the gym. That's not going to be pretty. Batman would have most likely died if he went that route. But watch how he isn't taking his training too lightly either, because there's still a chance of him getting hurt too. For Batman, he's right in the middle, to where the chance of him dying isn't that high, but he can still get hurt in the process. And this type of training is what baby stepped him to be the crime fighter he is today. And for you, you need to create a balance of challenges based on your own skill level. That means whatever you're working on shouldn't be so hard that you'll want to give up, but not so easy that you'll get bored and look for something new to do. Another example you can think of are gamers. When they begin playing video games for the first time, they usually start in normal or easy mode to get a feel for it. But as they get better and better, they actually increase the difficulties of the game to test their own limits. And over time, as they continue this process, they become one of the best players of that game. But what does this mean for you? I could continue listing hobby after hobby, but the main point is to start off with many challenges day after day. Don't focus on becoming some grand master anytime soon because you just want to understand the process of what you're doing. You may only have a little bit of knowledge about something today, but if you spend 20 minutes learning about it for an entire year, that's around 7,300 minutes. That's 5 complete days of looking over something on your spare time. And as humans, it's a requirement to get comfortable with anything we want to do. And this requires doing it with no interruptions. But interruptions happen to us all the time. We can start a project we like, but we can be constantly distracted by little things like our phone, Facebook, or Netflix. When you bring your entire attention upon something while interrupting your concentration, you produce a flow in your brain that keeps you from thinking useless things. What matters is not the amount of time you're present, but the amount of time you're working at your full potential. Think of it like this: you can spend an hour working out, but if you have 10 interruptions during that hour, you won't get the best workout for your body. Now the next point we're going to cover is environmental triggers. Now the reason Batman is constantly able to stay one step ahead of his enemies is because he doesn't allow himself to live a boring lifestyle. Although he's just a man with no powers or abilities, he still remains one step ahead of anyone he fights because the lifestyle he lives is never the same. He's constantly facing new villains and situations, forcing his brain to never relax and be on alert when he is confronted with new challenges. And as humans, it's easy for us to get bored of what we're doing because we all fall under a routine pattern flow based on our environment. Think of it like work. When you first start off at a job, it can be exciting at first because you're seeing everything there for the first time. You're going to feel the excitement of doing anything there that's new to you. But after doing the same thing there repeatedly, you eventually get bored of the job and stop focusing as much as you used to. You then see the job as being boring and repetitive, only doing the minimum to get by. And this type of reaction towards anything is what causes us to slowly lose our creative flow. We stop thinking of ideas or ways to get better at whatever we're working on because our mind is continuously completing the same checklist over and over again. And although we don't have to put ourselves in a life or death situation like Batman does, we still need to put ourselves in an environment that breaks us away from our comfort zone. Let's take my friend for example, who's a chef. There was a time in his life that after cooking the same thing there repeatedly, instead of quitting his job because of how bored he got, he decided to change it up a little bit by learning how to cook foreign and exotic foods. He learned how chefs in other places like Panama and the Caribbean cook their foods and then try using those recipes for himself. And doing that reminded him why he loved cooking so much. But for you, whenever you get bored of whatever you're working on, try changing it up a little bit to keep your interest alive. Avoid doing the same thing repeatedly and occasionally try something new in your field that doesn't make you feel comfortable. For me, when I get bored of writing for my website, I try different approaches to keep my interest alive, like writing about topics I'm not familiar with or interviewing certain people, lifestyles to understand the way they live. When you're constantly putting yourself into an environment where you don't know what's going to happen next, your brain is lit on fire and you can transfer that energy to whatever you're about to do next. And the last major point for this book is your social triggers. Perhaps the one thing that holds people back is the potential of fear and risk. But everyone fails at some point in their life when they do try something out, and to be scared of failure wouldn't make any sense. Whenever you set out to do anything, you have to accept the risk that's involved. For Batman, he takes on the risk of endangering his life, getting his identity exposed, and even challenging his mental state. But for you in your own life, your biggest risk might be having someone make fun of your project or goal you're trying to accomplish. But if you really want to show the world what you have to offer, you just have to accept the risk of making yourself vulnerable and go with the flow. It doesn't matter if you want to be an actor, a YouTuber, a writer, or even an artist. Everything you do in life is going to require some level of risk. When you go to college, you're risking 4 years of your own life along with a giant bill based on a degree you want to invest your time into. You're risking your own self-esteem and pride whenever you ask someone out on a date. But this isn't meant to scare you. It's actually meant to encourage you to put yourself out there into the world because you want fear to be your compass. We often look for reasons to avoid fear and risk, but that's often what makes us regret things in the future. But you rather live with the knowledge of knowing you tried something out after accepting the risk that was involved, instead of constantly just wondering, what if I asked her out? What if I started this business? Or what if I wrote this book? But it's your ability to remain humble, learn from your mistakes, and get better that unlocks your true potential. Always do something that makes you a little nervous because you'll be one step ahead of everyone who's only thinking about it. If you want to make YouTube videos, there's always a chance of someone giving you a bad comment or dislike. And I know this may sound cliche, but don't give up. Just keep trying new things out until you get better and better at it. Nobody is good at what they do for the first time, but they keep practicing at it until it becomes natural to them. Bruce Wayne didn't just put on a Batman costume and decided to become a superhero in one day or week. He actually had to practice for years and years until he reached that point. And like Batman, you need to face your biggest fears, such as people criticizing your work, the fear of getting out of your comfort zone, and the fear of making yourself vulnerable to your own inner critic. And that's The Rise of Superman, even though I use Batman, by Steven Kotler. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you have any ideas based on a video you'd like to see in the future, just hit a comment below so I can take a look at that. Alright guys, peace out and I hope you guys have a great day.